I can't imagine how difficult that was for you to go through, but getting hit there, what do you remember about it, and what do you have to say about it now?
Yeah, that was tough. I remember the play leading up to it, and then bits and parts of being on the ice, and then I basically remember really coming into it in the dressing room, and the game was over, and team was basically just coming in one by one and checking in on me, and I was actually pretty emotional too, because I don't know, when sometimes you get concussions, you just can't control certain things, and I was still trying to clue in what happened. At that point, I couldn't even figure out, who was on my line. I was trying to just try and clue back in. I was struggling.
When I stepped on the ice, I never backed down, and I never stayed down.
And I was vicious, and I was malicious, and I don't care.
He's a freaking madman. Look at him going to town. That'll be a suspension.
All right, Jake, welcome to Raw Knuckles Podcast. Awesome to take the time. We appreciate it. And let's get right to it. Growing up in Toronto, what I want to know, growing up in TO, were you a Habs fan or a Leaf fan?
Growing up, I was a diehard Leafs fan. I remember Matt Sundin was for sure my favorite player. Cujo, Brian McCabe, stuff, players like that. It was those are the guys I just remember watching. Cabriolet. I was a diehard Leafs fan and couldn't stand the Habs or the Sens.
Well, I know what that's like growing up in Boston. I hated the Habs because they always beat the Bruins, being a Bruins fan, and then I end up there. And you end up getting drafted by the Canadiens, and we'll get to that. But growing up playing junior, St. Michael's Junior B, did you looking at playing major junior at all? And what was the impetus for you to make the decision on going to college as opposed to going the junior route?
Yeah, there's a few reasons, I guess. The main one was my cousins both played at Cornell growing up, and I would go there. They probably played 6 years total there, and I loved going to watch them play, especially when they'd play teams like Harvard. The atmosphere there was unbelievable, and it's just such a cool environment. And then another big reason was I was maybe 5'10", 150 in my OHL draft year, and a bit of a mama's boy too, and just knowing I was not ready to take that. That's a pretty big step for a 16-year-old to go to major junior, and I think I would have just gotten killed out there and not been able to develop too much. So for me, it was those two were the biggest factors, and then obviously having that backup plan if hockey doesn't work out, and going to a good school and getting your degree, and not putting too much pressure, all your eggs in one basket into hockey was a big thing for me.
Were you getting looked at by other schools aside from Notre Dame?
Yeah, I probably had 8 or 10 schools. Yeah, my dad was almost like my agent at that point. He was talking to every single coach that would come to the games, and it's pretty funny how early these coaches now start to recruit these players to stop them from going major junior routes. And so I was 15 or 16 when I started really talking to schools, and then I remember I went on my dad made me go on this long trip across Michigan and Ohio, and we went to Penn State. So we went to a bunch of schools there and toured around there, and ended up at Notre Dame. And I just fell in love with the campus and the rink there.
Was there any interest in schools around Boston? Any of those BC, BU, any of those schools?
No, not from those two. I don't think. It's been a really long time since I was visiting, but I didn't visit those. But a lot of ECAC schools like Cornell was obviously a top choice of mine too, just because my cousins played there and knew how much they loved it, and a few others. It's the education there is top notch.
Well, not only loving the school and playing there, but you became captain at Notre Dame, which is quite an honor, no question about it. If you're today a young kid comes up to you and says, Jake Evans, I'm thinking of going to play junior. I'm thinking to go play college. What do you tell that young kid?
I've actually had a few of these discussions with some younger kids, and honestly, it just, in my opinion, it depends on who you are and what you need. And for me, I needed at least a few more years to grow up a bit, and I also needed to go to school and learn how to fend for myself, develop all these skills like time management, waking up at 6 a.m. to go to team workouts, stuff like that. So I don't know, some guys need to go on their own paths. I know I have a bunch of friends that went major junior route and loved it. And, some made it to the NHL, some didn't, but went to Canadian universities afterwards. And some were more ready for the bigger game, I guess, and some needed a bit more time. So I think it just varies on how you're doing at that point in your career and where you want to end up.
Yeah, Jake, I live like 30 minutes from Notre Dame's campus.
Oh, really?
I'm from Chicago. Yeah, I'm from Chicago, but I live in Long Beach, Indiana. So it's like kind of, about right on the Michigan City. Long Beach is like a fancy way of saying Michigan City. But people around here, there's like a Notre Dame alum, and they're like, they want you to ask them what college they went to. Like they're proud, and there's a lot. Yeah. Like, were you, were you aware of that going into the school? Like how prestigious that school is, and then how are you today? Like, are you proud that you went there?
Yeah, honestly, when I was even just touring around the school, you obviously look at the football stadium. I think that's like how you realize how big of a school it is, and it's like 80,000. It's an 80,000 seat stadium, and I didn't really notice it. And then once I went to my first tailgate and football game, I noticed how people fly in from all over the world, even just to watch these football games. And it's weird. It's like a massive family there. Like you could just walk to different tailgates. They don't care who you are. As long as you're wearing, the Notre Dame colors, you're welcomed in, and free food. I don't know. It's just like a huge family, and you really get to realize how big and how proud people are of that school. And I'm sure it's the same at a lot of other schools too. It's where you came from, and you grew up, with a lot of those people there, and then everyone has similar stories too.
So I love your honesty, and I say that because not many athletes, not many hockey players, not many athletes in general are going to say, I'm a mama's boy. So I like that. Now, certainly looking at your youth and growing up, and you go to Notre Dame, and when does it kind of come to you that, listen, I want to play in the NHL? Is that like when you went off to college, was that your ultimate goal, getting to the NHL?
Yeah, it's always, for me, it's always been a goal, and I've always dreamt of playing in the NHL. And I think my last year of junior B was when I was getting scouted and talking to, different teams. I started to feel like there was a chance. And then my first year at Notre Dame, I was, very driven, but I realized how much further I had to go. And I guess it's always been a dream, but I think at a certain point you realize, this can actually happen. And I think probably my third year at Notre Dame, I started to realize, I do have a chance of making it. And I think once you realize that, it makes you drive even harder and harder to get there.
What was your major? Art? You get like an art degree or something?
No, if you ask Gally on our team, he'll say I was a pottery major, but I was a business major.
So business major, captain at Notre Dame, your draft year comes, and I guess it was pretty stressful for you, because I read that you thought you may go in the earlier rounds, and it took 7 rounds. What were you, 201 or something? Overall?
207, yeah.
207, okay. Don't feel bad. Knuckles was 231, so don't feel so bad.
I brag about it.
I know, right? You flip it around. But how was that for you? Like, a lot of kids go to the draft today. Back in my day, I got a letter 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the Canadiens inviting me to training camp. That's it. Jeez. No one called me. No one said nothing. So what was that like, that draft day?
Yeah, the draft day sucked for me, honestly. Like, I didn't like my year, but I still thought I would go in the middle. I don't know, like four or five probably. And I don't know, you read into like those central scouting rankings and all that stuff, and you think you have an idea, and then you just watch and watch and watch, and just all these names and guys you've played with, and I'm sitting with my family and I'm like, I'm better than this guy or whatever. And I don't know, it was a painful day until I eventually got drafted, and it was just completely flipped, and it was one of the greatest days. You don't really think about where you're drafted, you're just happy to be drafted. But for the first, I don't know how long it was so painful and frustrating. And then I guess just to be drafted by the Habs is pretty funny too. I had all my friends from Toronto, laughing and thinking it's just hilarious that though basically the one team you really hated growing up is now they own your rights, and you're going to be a part of that organization. So it's pretty funny.
That is funny. I was just picturing you just waiting there, and then you get drafted and you're like, I'm not going.
Yeah. That was never a thought. It was pretty easy to switch teams at that point. But I had a lot of friends that are even still to this day are loyal Leafs fans, and they have a tough time when we play the Leafs.
So I want to get into the piano, because you played the piano as a kid. You took lessons, and listen, I think it's awesome that you did that. I just think if my father saw me playing the piano, he'd probably put my head through it. But how did that come about? And what did it do for you as a person moving forward? And how did that help you in your life today, like playing piano? Because listen, you see people sit down, they just away they go, but there's more to it than that, obviously. And has it helped you in any way as an adult?
Yeah, well, my mom actually made my brother and I play instruments growing up. Every morning before school for 30 minutes each, we'd be practicing, and I'd be piano and he'd be on the violin, actually. So your dad would probably lose his mind listening to that. But yeah, my mom made us both play every morning, and we both didn't love it. We were both pretty good at it though. And then we actually started doing recitals too, and like playing against other people. And, there'd be a judge there ranking your performances and stuff. So for me, it comes back to that time management thing. And as a hockey player now, you obviously have to have a lot of time management. So that's one big thing for me. And then also, I guess I've never been asked this question, I'm just thinking about it now, but I would say also just pressure and handling pressure when I'm performing in those. This was back in the 6th grade for me, the last time I did it. But yeah. I guess when you're performing in those situations, you can't really screw up because you're done then in those, I guess, recitals. And so, yeah, I guess just pressure situations and knowing how to handle them.
So if you're going in a shootout and it's a big shootout, you just start thinking about your recital?
I won't be going in the shootout till about the 13th round. So I
love it. Do you ever play? Like I grew up, I wish I played the piano. My brother and mom played, and you know, they say, like, you know, if you could play the piano, you could play any instrument. Like it's not easy. And then, but they have the boys seen you play? Like if you see a piano at a hotel, will you just go rip it? I think it's awesome.
No, I haven't actually done that yet. I had a keyboard when I was playing in Laval at my condo, and whenever I'd have the guys over, I'd just start jamming out a little bit. And that's probably the last time I've really played in front of the guys. I haven't seen a piano yet, or if I have seen one, it's probably right in the hotel lobby, and I'm definitely not doing that.
So, Jake, in your college career, you end up going into the playoffs, and you played Duluth in the final. And you get to that final, and how difficult was that? You get there, you get that shot, and you've been there in the NHL too. You get to that point where you're going to win it all, and then it's taken away. How difficult was that in college? And I know Tim is gloating about this question because Tim went to Duluth.
Oh, God.
And, I was at that game, actually.
He was at the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how difficult was that?
Yeah. I'd say that was one of I'd say probably behind the NHL finals, that was the most difficult loss I've had to deal with, just because you don't want to think ahead, but you think about, what happens if you win. Like for Notre Dame, that would be the first hockey championship ever. And that was my last game too. So, going out on top, it'd be, the perfect ending. And it was bittersweet because we were all so proud of how well we did that year. And, we lost by 1 goal. It was the way Duluth played was pretty frustrating. Like they didn't give you anything, which, but yeah, it's one little mistake and it's done. But it was pretty quick turnaround for me because I remember I was signing with Montreal the next couple of days. So that was something to be proud of. And then also just with with Notre Dame, it was the furthest they've ever made it to the finals. And it's just something to be proud of. It's easy to, focus on all the negatives and losing that game, but there's still a lot to be proud of in those moments.
No, I can relate to that. I went to the Frozen Four. This was back in 2004. This was before they became like good and won all the championships. They got rid of us and started tearing it up. But we lost in the semis, and it's probably the biggest regret in my. I mean, they're your best friends. The relationships you have with these guys. But what the game before to go to the finals, you scored that goal against Michigan. How does that rank to your first NHL goal?
Yeah, those two are tight, honestly, because, that game was back and forth against Michigan, and the arena was just like when you're playing college, you're used to playing, 4,000 or 5,000 fans, and then once you get into the XL Center, it was so loud, and playing your rival Michigan and scoring that goal, I just went numb after that goal, and one of the coolest moments, and it's right up there with I different situations, but it's right up there with my first NHL goal for sure.
So, Jake, you leave college and you're going off to training camp for the first time, Montreal. When you got there, what was for you the biggest eye-opener? Here I am now, NHL, Montreal, organization I hated all these years, and now I'm going to embark on my NHL career. What was the biggest eye-opener for you when you got there? Or surprise, I would say.
Well, my first camp was weird because I had the rookie camp and I got knocked out in the rookie camp game, so I didn't even actually get to go on the ice with any of them. By the time I was healthy, I was already heading to Laval. So I don't know, but just looking around and walking around those hallways in the practice facility, you get to see all the guys, and you get to see the drive that they all have and the motivation that they have to, to perfect their craft, I guess. And, you just look up to a lot of those guys and you want to be them. And I think in your first training camp, it's a good eye opener because you realize how far you have to go to get there. But it's extremely motivating too.
So that hit, by the way, was it against Ottawa?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was against Ottawa, right? I recall. Yeah. So that hit, you get the concussion right off the hop. How difficult was that to deal with? Here I am coming in my first year, and bang, in the rookie game, I end up getting a concussion. It's a setback right off the start.
Yeah.
I mean, that had to be difficult to deal with for you.
Yeah, it was in a way shocking. Like I've never had that issue before in my career, and it was just a weird hit, or I guess just the way I landed. Like it wasn't that bad of a hit, and I just fell right on my head and was out cold. And it was hard for me afterwards once I was starting to come back and play, I haven't played pro yet, and I'm playing against these way bigger guys, way faster guys, and it's hard to get that confidence to go in the corners or, to skate up with the puck, and you're worried it's going to happen again, and that's it for you. So it took a little bit. Like I was in Laval and playing fourth line for a while, and I didn't have too much confidence with my game, and then also just going in the corners, picking up pucks and stuff like that. So it took a while for that, and I had to, realize that hit was just kind of a freak accident and shouldn't happen often, and kind of move on from that. And I kind of got going after, I'd say, a few weeks in Laval and got that confidence back and wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah, that sucks. It was a bit of a setback off the start. And to get your confidence back, it's easy to say, "Oh, get back on the horse," right? But when that happens to you, it's a lot different. It's easy to talk about it, but until it happens to you, you don't know how you would react. So you spend those 2 seasons in Laval, 67 games the first one, 51 the second, and then what was it was 19 and 20 you got called up. Was that at the end of the season, 19 and 20 you got called up?
Yeah, I got called up right before the trade deadline. I think a bunch of guys were sick, and then I got sent back down. And then I remember they traded Nate Thompson, and they called me back up after the trade deadline.
So you end up playing those 13 games. And then talk about another setback, the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like here you are embarking on your NHL career, and it's easy to you look at it, but I always look for the positive things because there was so much negative with that. Was there any positive there for you? Getting called up and then all of a sudden you're in the midst of a pandemic and something that nobody has dealt with before.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it was a weird situation. Like I was basically going to finish the year with the Habs and, kind of getting my feet wet. And then and I remember the last 2 games, I think I had a goal and an assist and I was feeling great about myself. And then it's just season's over and have no idea when you're going to play next. I think in a way it helped me. Like I was working out in a garage, just waiting for you had no idea if we were going to play the rest of the season out, if we were just going to wait till October or whenever this pandemic's over. And in a way, it just motivated me to work and be like, I just had that fear that they were going to text you saying, "Oh, like, see you guys in a week. We're going right back into it." Like, so I don't know. I just kept working that whole, I don't know, I think it would be 3-4 months of nothing and just kept working out and staying hungry and realizing that this is, your time to take that step and get into the NHL.
Did you try to get the old rust off the piano hands, or did you get back into piano at all?
I was ripping the keys a little bit.
There you go.
My dad still has my keyboard in his basement, so I would just go down. Like there's nothing else to do. It's that, video games and workout. And, so I was just playing the piano a little bit. And
awesome.
Yeah. Jake, can you sit back just a little bit from the camera? Because there you are. Right there's perfect. Right there's perfect. So the pandemic that comes, you get back into playing. You're playing in the Great White North Division, and that had to be crazy in itself. Going to Vancouver, changing time zones all the time in that division. How difficult was that on the team? Not going out anywhere, staying in the hotel. What are some of the things they did to make, I guess the organization did, to make it easier on you guys, make it more normal, if you will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it was like I only played the 13 games before, so I didn't really know anything else. Like, I don't know, like my first full year in the NHL, I wasn't expecting anything. It was still awesome for me, but it was difficult for us. So like we're getting COVID tested every day, and you always have that small panic that you're going to get it and infect the team. And even though we were just on lockdown in our places, but on the road, it was every hotel had a nice lounge set up for us, and we could hang out there. And you actually got a lot closer with guys, I think, than a regular season, because you're literally around them 24/7 when you're on the road and hanging out in the hotel, instead of going off in your different groups and going to different dinners and stuff like that, or meeting up with guys on the other team. It was really only one option. It was order food on Uber Eats or whatever and head over to the lounge and just hang out with everyone.
What about preparation for games? Was that hard sometimes?
For me, no, because like I'm still trying to make it. But yeah, like I could see how guys, like it did suck just playing in empty arenas, and especially in the Canadian division. Like in the Canadian division, you knew how much fun those arenas would be in a normal time, right? Like all the Canadian rinks are so loud, and when you're playing another Canadian team, the atmosphere there is incredible. So that was the only difficult part and weird part, is when you score a goal and there's just fake applause in the crowd. It was a little weird, and but for me, it was still easy to find that drive and find the energy there.
Yeah, that would suck. I mean, just to be able to hear the coach all game, just skate. Yeah. That would just drive me nuts.
Oh yeah, you could hear everything.
So
crazy.
You end up obviously making a place for yourself on this team. When did you feel like, okay, I'm here, I'm not going back down to Laval, I've made a place for myself on this team? When was that? I'm not going to say when did you get comfortable, but kind of, all right, I'm here now.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that whole COVID year was difficult too, because I think we were really tight against the cap too. So I was actually getting bumped up and down the taxi squad and back up just for salary cap reasons. Some of the other entry level guys were as well. And then once we traded for Eric Stahl, I remember I basically couldn't be called back up until there was an injury. So I was basically getting scratched for like 5-6 games in a row. So I never actually felt like I made it at that point, until probably the playoffs, when I started to kind of carve out a role for myself. Then I felt like, yeah, like I'm here and I'm contributing a lot more. So I think at that point I did, but during the season there wasn't really a certain point.
You say you had to wait for someone to get hurt? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was.
That's tough. I'd be like, you're like watching, but you're also like hoping someone.
No, it was a weird situation. I don't exactly know the rules, but I think we ran into call-ups or something like that, or there's some sort of rule, and because of how tight we were with the cap, and they had to basically just stick with the roster they had, and I was just on the taxi squad for I think a week or 10 days, and was basically just watching games and had no chance of playing.
So the year you do go to the playoffs and you go to the finals, how I guess how surprised are you? Let's talk about that Toronto series just to start. Mm-hmm. You're down 3-1. I mean, I've been in those situations with teams, and I know the talk that goes around the room. And you've got a captain in Shea Weber who's there, who certainly is a great leader. What was that like, down 3-1 to the Leafs? What was it like in the room? Did you see some of the long faces? There were kids up in the stands. You know, they sat out Cole. They sat out Kokiniemi for a little bit there. And how difficult was that? Down 3-1. Did you seem like – I mean, it had to seem like it's almost an insurmountable hill we have to climb it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely a difficult time, because I think during that season we played the Leafs probably 10 times, and I'm sure they beat us 7 or 8 times too. So we already knew we were up against it, and we knew, I'm sure every single media outlet said we were going to get smoked by them too. And but there was that belief within the group, which is just a really cool thing. And it was guys like Shea and Corey Perry and Pricey and Eric Stahl. And I remember we had a chat, and they basically said, like, you don't get many of these opportunities. You think, like, as a young guy, like, you think it's kind of easy to make the playoffs and you'll get back there next year. And they basically said it's not easy at all. Like, you don't know when you're going to be back. And that was a really cool moment. And I think we all knew if we won that game 5, you know, we start to get them a little bit on their heels and start to question themselves a little bit. And yeah, the rest just kept going, and it kept going well for us, and we found, you know, the right recipe.
Yeah, there's no question about it. You guys got on that roll. They scored that overtime goal. Then Byron's goal, what a big goal that was. It's just incredible. And you knocked them off. And I want to talk, I guess, get into the whole thing that happened in Winnipeg with you with the concussion. Now, You've had one concussion, or did you have another?
I had another one.
Right.
In the bubble, in the playoffs the year before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then here you are going down to put that puck in the empty net, and I'm telling you, as a former player, the anger I felt at that moment. One, I wanted to get at someone and I couldn't. Two, after that whole thing, it really bothered me seeing you laying there on the ice like that. And Scheifele wouldn't take ownership of it. It really pissed me off because he said he was trying to stop a goal. It's bullshit. Because for me, I know I put myself in his shoes. If I was playing against the Bruins in the playoffs and it was Ken Linsman coming around the net to try and score an empty net, I would have done the exact same thing as he did. But I would have taken ownership of it. And that bothered me about it. And listen, I can't imagine how difficult that was for you to go through, but getting hit there, what do you remember about it? And what do you have to say about it now?
Yeah, that was tough. I basically I remember the play leading up to it, and then bits and parts of being on the ice. And then I basically remember really coming into it in the dressing room, and the game was over and team was basically just coming in one by one and checking in on me. And I was actually pretty emotional too, because I don't know, sometimes when you get concussions, you just can't control certain things. And I was still trying to clue in what happened. At that point, I couldn't even figure out, who was on my line. I was trying to just try and clue back in. I was struggling. And then, to be honest with you, the next couple of days, I was surprised with how I felt. I was, headaches weren't too bad. I was able to socialize with guys and stuff like that. So that part was fine. The whole media draw and everything from it, I don't know if you guys know, but I don't love the media too much, and I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want that to be the storyline when our team's playing so well and we're winning. I think after game 2, it was like 5 games in a row we won. I didn't want to be a part of any of that. Like, I wanted the focus to be on actual hockey. So I think for me, that was just the most frustrating part was, one, I couldn't say anything because I was basically on lockdown back in my condo in Montreal. And then 2, I didn't think that needed to even be a talking point. It was that hit anymore. Like, I think I'm happy with how the league handled it. And I just wanted to get back to hockey, and I just wanted hockey to be the main focus point and not on all this media and all these interviews and all that.
Did you think you were actually going to come back and play and then the same playoffs, or did you think you were done?
To be honest with you, I didn't even want to think about it because obviously I had those 2 previous concussions, and I've got one of my best friends from back home that had to call it a career way too early on because he came back too early and got hit again. And how playoffs get with all the hits and just a heavy game. And I didn't want to think about coming back. I just wanted to focus on how I was feeling every day. And, after 2 weeks, I felt pretty good and started skating again. And then, that kind of crawls back into your head that, you might have a chance. And we beat Winnipeg quickly. And I don't know, I guess after the Winnipeg series, I started to think maybe there is a chance, but I didn't want to rush it. And the training staff was great with me because there would be some days where I'd tell them I'm feeling 100%, I'm ready to go. And they're like, hold on a sec, Jake, not a chance. Like, you're not even close to coming back. Like, we're making sure you're 100%. And yeah, it's difficult with concussions, right? Like, one day you'll feel fine, and then the next day I go on a walk with my girlfriend and I'd have a headache for no reason. Yeah. So you really want to make sure and have, I don't know how many days, but you need to be 100% confident coming back, and I wasn't rushing that at that point.
Well, I'm glad you've felt better for sure, and you did come back. How about, because I know I read somewhere I know your mom had some say in this. Your mom's a doctor, right? And I think she was quoted somewhere as saying she didn't want you to come back too soon or whatever. How difficult that must have been on your mom and dad, your family members at home watching that game. How difficult was that on them? Like, they had to be horrified.
It's I don't know. Like, my girlfriend was in Montreal locked down too, and she's, it's her first year dealing with all this too, and she's texting all the wives like, "What do I do?" My mom and my dad, all they want, like, they just want answers, and they, like, the training staff did all they could and called everyone right away and said, "I'm doing okay," but they just, like, they wanted to be there, and I think that was the most painful thing, was they couldn't be there to help me out and be with me, and it was tough for me too. Like, I wish I could have just sent out like a massive alert to all of my close friends and be like, "Guys, I'm okay," but yeah, like, I had probably 200 texts that night saying, "Hope you're doing okay," and that was a tough thing. It's a cool thing because you realize, that all the support you have, from back home in Montreal and within your family. It was a really cool thing seeing how many people cared, but it also just sucked because, you don't want people worrying about you in that fashion. And that was the tough part.
So you've certainly been through a lot when you look at the start of your career and going to the finals with that team, and then, coming up empty in the final, but still a great accomplishment to get there with that team. And then all of a sudden there's changes made, management change, and now early in your career, you're going through a situation where the team is rebuilding. How do you feel? Has your role on this team been defined well by Martin St. Louis? And how different is it playing for Marty as opposed to Claude Julien? And not to throw Julien under the bus, I know he's a great coach, but from all intents and purposes, all I hear about Marty is it was so refreshing when he came in and spoke to the team at first. How difficult has that been? Like, all right, now I'm the part of a rebuild, and how's that been on you?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, I guess when I was talking about that Toronto series, and guys like Webby and all the older guys saying, "You don't know when you're going to get that chance again." They were right, because you don't know. Like, we went in the last year, and I know we didn't take anything for granted or anything lightly, but things clearly just didn't go well, and we weren't expecting it. And yeah, it's tough when you're playing games, and at that point, even in January and February, that are basically meaningless towards the standings. Like, you're basically out of it. So it's completely different. And this year, for the most part, with Marty, and I thought we were really good to start. We were really competitive, and we've taken a little slip, but the way he's been coaching us, I think he's getting the most out of every single guy, and he's demanding and holds the guys accountable, but he makes hockey a lot more fun. And I think Montreal is in great hands with him, and all those younger guys are going to grow so much of their game because of him. And he's just such a passionate person for the game, and I guess a student and a coach of the game. Like, he's always trying to learn, but he's always teaching guys stuff that he's learned. And I think it's a great spot for him and for the younger guys to have a coach like that, because all he wants to do is teach guys and get them to grow their game.
Do you recall, we've had a few other Canadians on the team. Do you recall like his speech, his first addressing of the team? How was that for you?
Yeah, that was well, it's weird when you get it. Like, I've been through, I think, 2 coaching changes now, and they're I don't know, it's a weird thing to understand, because you feel like you let that one coach down and you have a lot of respect for them. Like, I felt really bad for the whole Dom situation, and a few months before that we were in the finals, and then, stuff happened, and then Marty comes in and just fired everyone up. Like, it was cool. It was like, I've obviously grew up watching him, but never had the chance to really hear him give a speech. And he just seemed so excited and so ready to get this thing going. And I just remember everyone got up out of the room and was just like nudging each other, like, holy crap, like let's get out there. Like, and it showed, I think, in our play that year. The rest of the year, the games were way more fun, and we were a way more competitive team. And like I was saying, like, he just got the most out of everyone.
Yeah, and certainly a refreshing change. And how has Marty changed at all from that first meeting to now? Because there got to be some wear and tear when here you're going through a rebuild, but you're losing hockey games. You just went through a stretch where you didn't win in 7 games, come home, end up winning against St. Louis. And then last night, getting booed at the Bell Center. Believe me, I've been there quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Not fun. But is there any frustration on his part, do you think, where he's been in it a while now, and he's I guess probably wants better results than he's getting?
Yeah, I think when you start the year as a coach, I think it's more your team. I think last year there was for sure games at the end of the year where there'd be similar situations like last night where we just sucked in a period and didn't deserve to be in a game. And I think it's different when you start the year as a coach, and he's definitely harder on us and holding guys more accountable. And, he's not letting anyone get away with anything, which I think is great for us. And we need that. And, I think we've got a lot of skill and a lot of great players and great people on this team, but sometimes you need to be roped back in and brought back down to earth, and not thinking, you're just going to win on skill alone or on all your talent. It's a team game. And like I said, he's been getting the most out of everyone, and everyone respects and listens to him. And when he speaks up, everyone's, ready to go and ready to, go through a wall for him. Yeah.
How about you and your role on this team? Has it been defined for you? Like, I think back when I played with Carbonneau and Bob Gainey. We were checking line. It was defined. It was awesome for me because I knew I had a job to do, and that's what was expected of us. Go down and shut down the big lines on other teams. I love that. Has that been presented to you, that role, that way?
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily needs to be said, but, as games go on, you realize you basically know when you're going out there, and when you can take a seat.
Face-offs.
Like the big face-offs on my side. Like I know if I'm doing, well on them, I'm going out there, and if there's a 5-on-4 or 5-on-3, for us, I know I'm just going to, sit down and let the other guys handle that. So I don't know. You kind of know your role, and like you were saying, like I love going against top lines and, just being a bit of a pest and being hard to play against. And I take pride in that stuff. And I did that a lot in college, and taking big face-offs and penalty killing. And I find it a lot of fun, and I know I'm not going to be that, sniper on the team, but I obviously want to contribute offensively. But I find it's just so much fun to go against top lines and have that role and have a big impact on the game.
Your locker room's kind of unique. You got you, who's like the master at the piano, and then you got, the guy that works at Costco. How's that? I love that guy. How's having Arbor on the back end, and how's that been for you? And just how is he overall as a teammate?
Yeah, he's been great. Obviously, having him on the ice, it's always nice to have a tough guy out there, and guy who can skate around and put fear in the other teams just off of basically how big he is and how hard he hits. And all those young guys have been a lot of fun. They bring so much energy every day. They're excited to get out there. They stay on the ice for so long. And, I'm not one of the oldest guys, but I've been around a little bit now. And it's nice when you get, fresh legs, all this fresh excitement in, and they're just happy to be in the NHL. And I think that always helps a team out, especially when you're in a bit of a skid. You've got these guys that are just so excited and so happy, and you take a seat back and you realize how lucky you are to be in the NHL.
How about Jordan Harris? Like, we had Jordan on. Actually, him and Abba came over to the house for dinner. I had them for dinner one night. But have you ever met like a nicer guy than Jordan Harris? Like, the kid, he's like the nicest kid, right?
Yeah. He's a quiet kid, but very nice. I would definitely put him as one of the. I haven't heard him say I don't know, prove it yet, but I could just picture him being one of the smartest guys and have one of the highest IQs on the team.
Right.
Really nice guy, very mature, and I think he's an extremely smart person as well.
It's funny.
Who's the funniest guy? Who's the funniest guy? Weidman? Is he funny?
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's I know he's loved having Arbor on the team because they usually play together, and Weidman can start yelling more at guys. Yeah, he's funny. He's a great guy, and obviously, I'm sure you guys have heard Gally loves messing around in the dressing room and pissing people off.
All right. We have a kid here who works with us, Matthew, and Matthew puts some questions together. They're just quickies. You don't need a whole lot to think about. Who are your closest friends in the team?
Say Gally, Nick, Cole, Army. Yeah.
Is that Yoel Amia?
Yes.
Yeah. I like that guy. I met him a couple of times. Say hi to him. But his mouth doesn't move a whole lot. I don't
know. No. Quiet, nice guy.
I really like him as a player too. I was so happy he scored a couple goals the other night. But anyway, what was your first big purchase after signing your first NHL contract?
Probably just be my car. I was driving, even my first year in the NHL, I was driving my dad's old 2009 Acura to the rink, and I was getting chirped quite a bit. So I didn't get anything crazy fancy. I got a nice Jeep, but that was my biggest purchase.
What cities are the best to go party in across the NHL? Give me top 3.
To go party in. Nashville, probably New York City. Let's say LA too.
Okay. Let me see. What is the best and the worst thing about playing in Montreal?
Best thing by far is just the Bell Center, and I guess you could include the fans in that. Is every game, wherever you are in the standings, if it's a Monday night even, they're so passionate, and it's always a packed crowd, and it's just such a fun place to play. Negative, I mean, I am from Toronto, but I'd probably say the weather and how dark it gets here so quickly. It's tough.
You're not going to say the media, not the media.
I was thinking about it, but I've actually done a good job of just hiding away from social media this past couple of years. So that can be a problem if you don't, stay away from it. But I'll go with the safer answer and say weather.
What if hockey didn't work out for you? What was Plan B?
I never had one. That's why I just went to school and got that piece of paper. And
I got you playing piano at like a cocktail lounge, like the background music.
Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to get the keyboard back and start practicing.
If you could play with any player in NHL history, who would you want to team up with?
Probably, I think Sidney Crosby. I know it's probably another popular answer, but I grew up watching him, and I hate playing against him, but love watching him play. And just such a smart player and so strong with the puck, and makes such smooth and nifty little plays. He's always fun to watch.
Cool. All right. How about Slavkovsky? How's this kid? When you look at this kid as a teammate, 18 years old, how mature is he for that, being an 18-year-old kid? Like he lived in Finland on his own at 16, right?
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable what in the size of him. What do you see this kid doing at some point with this organization?
I mean, I truly think the sky's the limit with him. It's like I picture myself at 18. I was just getting into Notre Dame, and like I said, I was a mama's boy. And this guy's very mature for being 18, and I think he's handled the pressure very well. To be honest with you, like I was saying, all these young guys, a lot of it's him. He comes in with so much energy, and he's always trying to learn and get better, and talking with coaches and other players, and staying out extra, working on his shot, working on all these small things. I think, he's got a big frame, but he's going to grow into a player I think that not a lot of guys will want to play against.
Yeah, it's something when I think 18-year-old kid, what I was doing at 18, I'm like, kid in the NHL,
no,
pretty
unbelievable.
It's
crazy.
Yeah, no chance.
Right?
Yeah.
Tim, we're going to have to get him on at some point, Tim. That should be a fun one.
Yeah.
How's his English? Is his English pretty good?
It's pretty good. I'm impressed with it.
Like good enough to come on Raw Knuckles?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're going to have to look at getting him on here. Listen, Jake, just signed a 3-year extension, right? How happy you with that? And certainly give you a little bit of security, I guess. And congrats on that for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my big thing. It's, you can take as many risks as you want and sign 1-year deals and hopefully get whatever, $1 million more, or a few $100,000 more, but it's still once in a lifetime money. And it's a great life to be living in, and a great city to be in. So for me, it was a no-brainer when I signed that deal, and no regrets, and so happy about that.
Well, good for you. Congrats, and good luck the rest of the way this season. Really appreciate you taking the time for us. All right, pal?
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks, Jake.
As most of you know, I'm a dog person. I have a Saint Bernard. Her name is Adele. Why do I feed Adele Formula Raw? Because I love her. I want to provide her with a healthy, well-balanced, locally sourced diet. A diet that consists of meat, chicken, fish, mixed with fruits and vegetables that her 140 pounds requires. I also feed her Formula Raw because it helps her overall energy, it helps her with allergies, and helps strengthen her overall immune system. Dimitri and Nick at Formula Raw have worked tirelessly over the last 10 years to perfect their recipe, and they've got it, because you know how I know? Adele loves it. She never misses a meal, and she's a healthy, big, beautiful Saint Bernard. Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the Raw Knuckles podcast. We'd really appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, and share with a friend.